Coming up this week on Beyond the Vibe, we're joined by Henrik Steenholdt of EMPYRE.
MTV Unplugged was always a thing that we really liked. So when we were doing the acoustic covers, we would always like refer back to, how did Pearl Jam do that? How did Stone Temple Pilots do that? How did Alice in Chains do that? Nirvana, whatever it would be. But I use what is now legacy equipment, I would imagine, which is an HD 500X by Line 6, which goes, as you say, straight into depth. So just dual XLR, so I wanted to ask you, sorry to just sidestep your point there, but I wanted to ask you, I saw your cowboy boots at the TIV the other night, which is definitely in competition with our guy Dig Coles and his cowboy boots. We want to play the major rock festivals of Europe as a minimum. So that's basically, that's goal number one.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Vibe, the show that cuts deep into the world of music.
My name is Aaron Day, lead guitar band These Wicked Rivers, and I'm here with music videographer and photographer. It's Mr. Ryan Basie.
It is, with some stylish glasses there, I see.
I don't know if it's obvious, but I've got some new sunglasses. I've probably gone for that Baz massive wagon in it together sort of vibe.
It feels like it.
well, we've been recently gigging with the wagons. You know, we just had Morecambe with them, and we also had today's guest and his band EMPYRE gigging with us as well. You know, so and we gigged with them. We've gigged with them a few times now. EMPYRE, they're on the same management label as us, and it made me think, Mr. Basie, about how the scene in general has kind of grown. You know, over time. I mean, it's amazing because obviously we've interviewed a lot of these bands. Through lockdown, you know, we played Savfest in Colville a while back, and I saw Shape of Water Boys, you know, and obviously never met them before apart from over Zoom, you know, and the Crows Boys. And the first thing me and Ronnie said was like, "Oh, it's nice to see you." Know, I'm not going to do his Welsh accent.
No,
but because it would have been very poor. But you know, it's one of them where it's like it's nice to see you, sort of, you know, same with Jill from the Hot Damn, you know, and it reminds me of that sort of new wave of British heavy metal thing. And I don't know about you, but you know that the early years DVD we made it, you'd see that you know, when they were around first album era, and you'd have Neil Kay at the Rock, you know, in the Rock House in London, you know, spinning all these bands. It feels a bit like that, and all the bands are gigging together. You know, I don't know how it feels from you on the outside of that, because obviously I've kind of brought you into this world of, and I can just take you out as well.
At any moment.
Any moment. I brought you into this world.
Yeah, I mean, the strange thing for me is that I've kind of seen it all backwards. So, like, traditionally, you would go to a gig and then think, oh, I'll check out this band, I'll check out this band, I'll look at this band. Whereas I've come through it in terms of, like, pure internet-based. So, obviously, we have the new wave of classic rock group, which then opens up to the other bands. And then, obviously, we've had the interviews. But I am yet to see one new wave of classic rock band currently in the flesh. So it's a strange one, but you can, you know, you do see that kind of weird thing where everybody knows everybody.
The community thing. You're obviously a part of that now, man. You know, because we've interviewed so many of them. You know, so it'd be nice to go out into that world and begin to connect. You know, in that way, like, oh, I know you. I've seen you on at the end of a Zoom call.
Yeah,
pleased to meet you. you're a lot scruffier than in real life, which is what I normally get. But I like your new sunglasses, which is what I also get. Not all bad, but yeah, there's definitely that community thing, and it was first thing I said to Henrik when we saw them at the Crows gig at the TIV in Wales a few weeks back was, great to gig with you again, man. Like, it's just great to see you and the boys, you know, and it's EMPYRE, you know, a really good example of the variety within the scene, you know, because what they do is very atmospheric, sort of, you know, very melodic rock and roll. Is very much different than what we guys do, and much different than the Crows, but in a line. It works because it's all part of that same community, and they're all new rock supporting each other up and down the ladder. And I think that kind of, you know, sums it all up in terms of the new wave of classic rock and that community. But what I want to know, Mr. Basie, when can we hear an interview with Henrik from EMPYRE?
You can hear that now.
So we're here with brother Henrik of EMPYRE. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Good to see you.
That's cool. So one thing that we like to do on the show is we like to go like right back to the origins of a musician. So with that in mind, when was the first time you remember hearing music and thinking like, this is what I want to do? Was there a moment for you?
Some people like that. My relatives would probably say that the first time that they ever thought I was going to do music was probably when I was about 3 or 4 years old.
Wow.
And like watching Top of the Pops or something like that and dancing around on the sofa. But the first time that I ever thought I really wanted to do music, as much as I was just interested in it, was probably around, I guess, the age of 14, when the idea of starting to get into bands or just trying to play an instrument with someone else at the same time, not necessarily, you know, bass, drums, guitar, but just someone else who could probably play guitar at the same time, just rather than me sitting in my bedroom or whatever playing it. That's about the first time when I started on that kind of trajectory.
And what came first, Henrik? Was it guitar? And then when was the moment that you realised you had a voice?
Well, the first thing I started out with was piano, and I was shit at that for years, and still pretty questionable. Did is a lot better than our lead guitarist did. Is a lot better pianist than I am. So, but I like playing around on the piano. So I reckon I learned the piano between the ages of about 5 and 11. I never did any grades, but I know that just from my teacher, I never got past grade 3. And then I kind of dropped that because I found it really, really boring the way that I was learning. I couldn't learn anything I wanted to do. I was just learning whatever the pieces the teacher was kind of serving. So then it was guitar, and then singing. I don't really remember the first time I tried it, but again, it was probably around the age of 14 and 15 when nobody in my year at school was singing. The first time that I tried it was, I think, after my first gig, which I played just guitar. And we did, first song I played live was Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses. And the guy who sang that, I was like, I reckon I could pretty much do as good a job as that guy, because all he did was mumble some shit and run around on stage. So it's just like, I can stand there. I don't want to run around on stage, but I can stand there and mumble some shit. So I'll give that a go, yeah.
Cool. So obviously most people all know you for Empire. So you first kind of came onto the scene with your 2017 cover of My Immortal by Evanescence, epic cover of an epic song. In that kind of journey, if we focus just on Empire, I mean, I know with Rivers, there's kind of a bit of a moment when it's, whether it be a practice or when you first recording for the first time, where you kind of look at each other and you get a bit of a corny look between each other, like you're going to start kissing, but you don't kiss. Well, you do. But you kind of have this moment and you think, this is going to be good. Is there anything that sticks in your mind, Henrik, in the band, when you kind of all felt like it was really going to that next level?
There's nothing that sticks out. It was more of a, because it was kind of so gradual, and it grew out of a covers band. So it was a case of like a few jams and writing a few pieces and trying it out. And there were definitely times in the practice room where that kind of thing happened, but I can't pinpoint a specific instance, nor do I remember the exact point where I said to Dib, we need to quit this cover band malarkey and do our own stuff, because it had already been 8-9 years before we did that. So that kind of moment of realization, really hard to pinpoint exactly when that was.
But that's definitely a pivotal moment, like that moment you had that conversation with it.
Yeah, I remember that conversation. I think that was probably just before, it feels like late 2016 type of time, when we were still doing it, and we weren't doing it as avidly as we were before. And it was, I think it's like, are you bored of doing the cover stuff? And it was like, yeah, a bit. I think it all actually spurred from the point of when the first time Dib probably ever said to me that I don't want to play that song again, which that song was probably Sex on Fire. And
it's very, very understandable.
And And then it was a case of like, yeah, we started to get like pretty bored with a few of the songs. And it was like, should we just like really reel it back and just focus on doing Empire and do the odd acoustic covers gig, which we still do. You know, we've got one in a couple of weeks' time. But that was basically probably that moment. Yeah.
Cool.
So your most recent release was the acoustic album, The Other Side. When you had the collection of songs decided and walked into the studio, like, did you have a certain vibe that you wanted to achieve with the record, and like, how did you go about this? Because obviously, the acoustic album, it's got a different flavor, isn't it?
Yeah, the original idea for it was we were used to doing acoustic stuff. We'd go back to covers band. That was originally an acoustic rock covers band. The first time Did and I ever sat down together, that was me with an acoustic guitar and Did with an acoustic guitar and then an electric guitar. And we always, like, MTV Unplugged was always a thing that we really liked. So when we were doing the acoustic covers, we would always like refer back to, oh, how did Pearl Jam do that? How did Stone Temple Pilots do that? How did Alice in Chains do that? Nirvana, whatever it would be. But like, okay, yeah, so they did, no, yeah. And then we would try to do something different. I remember that Travis, for example, not on MTV Unplugged, they did a cover of Britney Spears, Hit Me Baby One More Time. And I was like, we started playing that as a cover, just like ripping them off, because they did it and kind of went down all right. So when we like came to doing our stuff, it wasn't too hard to translate some Empire stuff into doing a different version, and then did want to play with the guitar parts, and we'd like try and, some of them are a little bit slower, take the tempo down a little bit, that kind of stuff. And then it was a case of, well, we could do an EP, or then, well, we could perhaps do a whole album. So going in there, I would say that the main vibe we were going for was that kind of MTV Unplugged vibe. That was really kind of how we were aiming at it.
Cool. No, that's cool, man. I think you can definitely comes across when you listen to the album that you've done that process before. I mean, I think of other bands that have tried to do acoustic stuff, and it just feels like a straight translation, and it doesn't feel like a strong enough process, and it doesn't do testament to what you're trying to achieve with the acoustic stuff, whereas it comes across you've explored that in your minds. I mean, in terms of looking at the first, the debut album, kind of the first 4 electric release by you and the boys, do you feel that that's kind of like the strongest representation of the Empire sound for fans that are looking at what they to expect from a live show? Or do you feel that the live show a few years later has now developed into something more powerful?
I think the live show has developed into something more powerful than it was when Self-Aware came out. But I think if you compare the electric stuff to the acoustic stuff, we like doing both, but electric's probably a better representation of what we normally do. But we like to mix it up. Some of that acoustic stuff has actually seeped into the electric versions because we just like the vibe of it, or a certain guitar part.
It does feel like that's become like a little amalgamation of what's become your sound at this point, which is really cool, because it's not like some people would see an acoustic album as almost just, like just a bit of a different kind of flavour to bring out to the fans, whereas it kind of feels like it's a proper story in your timeline. And I imagine then when we get to what's next for you and the boys, that'll be a full amalgamation of that.
Well, I mean, we never referred to it as, we always referred to the next album as album 2, but we still see The Other Side as an album. And now and again, I listen back to some of that stuff, especially if it's something like we haven't released My Bad, the piano version that did adapted the guitar and stuff and turned it into that. And so that's one that I don't hear as much as the other ones. And listen back, it's like, yeah, that's a proper different song to what we wrote. Only Way Out is a proper different song to what we originally wrote, and it's nice to be able to bring that in. It is almost like playing 2 different albums when we're doing like acoustic set versus doing an electric set. So it's kind of feels like we've got a wealth more than just the 11 songs we started off with.
Yeah, man.
When it comes to deciding like what songs were going to get the acoustic treatment, like were there any for you that like you thought, well, that one's got to be like straight in there, or is there like any personal favorites for you?
Well, the easy ones were like the quickest ones probably in the set, because they're the ones we did like the least work on. So like cut to the core. The most straightforward, like no messing around, almost chord for chord, note for note is exactly the same. Although I think it might be like 2 BPM slower. Is cut to the core. That is that's basically exactly the same as it is. But we, or at least I, Elliot loves drumming that track, electric, but I much prefer doing the acoustic version to the electric version. The electric version was probably the odd one out on Self-Aware in terms of like, is this an Empire track or is this something a little bit more pop rocky? Drive also are now, these days, I prefer the acoustic version to the electric version. Only Way Out I'm really torn on, because just I like doing them both of them. So it's difficult. It's a tricky one as to like how they translate and what I prefer, but I think generally most of the band probably feel the same way about most of those tracks too.
Oh, it's cool. Now, one of the things I picked up when we spoke about it in terms of the live show and how it's developed, when we gigged at the TIV in Wales with Crows, which, a few weeks back, which is a fucking amazing gig. I clocked during sound checking in the show that obviously you've got a guitar that goes. It's an XLR out that goes straight into the PA, isn't it? I remember you guys back. Is that still the same rig you've got now?
Yeah, so basically, I'm a lazy guitarist. No bones about it, guys. Like, I cannot be fucked to pick up an amp. I just couldn't. I did that for like in one of the first bands I was in, lugging around some Marshall. I was like, nah, this is not for me. How can I get out of this? So I just I discovered Line 6, and first of all got the Pod XT live. So I didn't actually get that, that little kidney bean red Pod X, but I got the Pod XT live. So and then that was all right, but I think not brilliant. And now I haven't even progressed to the Helix. I do some stuff with the Helix edit when we're like writing stuff. It's pretty good to just be able to play around with sounds. But I use what is now legacy equipment, I would imagine, which is an HD 500X by Line 6. Which goes, as you say, straight into that. So just dual XLRs, so most places don't have pure proper separation between left and right. They're going to do some sort of mono configuration, but I can then emulate, so two setups, and then put a tiny little delay in between them, which makes it just that much fatter. So I could have a more, so for like Only Way Out, I've got a more pretty much acoustic sound on one side, and I've got just a clean electric sound on the other, with like a 20-30 millisecond delay between them, just to give that fuller tone. And the same thing for when it goes into the electric sound when I do the solo bit of that. So we can try and make it sound as fat as possible. So on a good day, it's like having 3 guitarists or 2 rhythm guitarists and doing that. So that's basically a floor box about that big, and no amp, and then a Line 6 Variax guitar. So again, I got to do minimal guitar changes, minimal tuning. If I want drop D, I just basically hit the floor box, and I don't even have to hit a tuning peg.
I mean, Ryan, if you start playing guitar, this is the ultimate rig for you, isn't it? Like,
it sounds
perfect.
It sounds, no nonsense, nice and simple. This is what I like.
But sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, the difficult thing about it is I've heard plenty of people slag it off, and certainly the sounds are not the epitome of greatness. It's not up to Kemper level. It's not necessarily up to Helix level, but they're good, and they work with Did's Fender sound, because Did, again, is an unconventional guitarist. Aaron, you've seen his setup as well. Again, it's not particularly complicated. He's got quite a small board with only about 6 different things on there. And then he's just got a Fender combo amp and his Strat or his Telly, and now he's got the baritone, and that's basically it. I think we're quite a basic.
Well, you're quite an interesting
band.
Henrik, because you've got you've got like this epic sort of sound, but then when you rock up and there's like Like, you've not got any amp, and obviously, like, it's got his little fender. You're thinking, nah, this is bollocks. This is like this is. They're definitely not. This isn't going to sound like it does. But then, obviously, like you say, when you describe it, and you get them layers of guitars coming through, and like you say, a big part of a band's sound, particularly with the guitar sound, is how things complement each other. Yeah. Because if you two had massive Marshalls, then you just put in heads, and there's no clarity. And I think particularly with your vocals as well, I think the band needs to have that sense of clarity and that feeling of very controlled power, which I think comes across really well. But you're saying about being a lazy guitarist, but as well, you control your own reverbs for your voice, don't you? Because if you've got the Helicon as well.
Yeah, I'm basically foot tapping all the bloody time.
Yeah, you're not lazy. You've finished 4 jobs for yourself.
Let's say I don't want to lift anything, but if it just comes to like moving my feet like this, that's fine. So yeah, I got the I'm looking for it down on the floor because I'm so used to having it's not down there. I think it's called Voice Play Live. So most of the reverb I will control, although normally the house will have on some reverb and maybe even like a really short delay I've noticed in some places, or it could just be bouncing back off certain, walls, depending on what the venue's like. But if it's any sort of delay, any sort of harmony that Did isn't doing, or if it's like a super long reverb, then yeah, I'm controlling it. So I've got all the presets for the different songs. Yeah. I've got like a couple that I will use for most things, but then when it comes to something like Only Way Out, that is an arse of a song to play for me, because not only have I got to sing the beginning of it and play it in an acoustic sound, I've got to go directly into a solo and change my voice sounds to a way less delay, no harmony, and no delay, less reverb, and no harmony, which is a good couple of taps, 2 to 3 taps of that floor box, plus go to the solo sound, then fade the solo sound out, and then come back into the verse.
Yeah, I think you're definitely not lazy, Henrik. And if anything, I think you're grafted. But I think you want it to come across as it sounds on the record, though. That's the feeling I get. Is that you just want to give the ultimate reflection of that. And I admire that. I mean, I'm a big pedal guy, and for similar reasons from a guitar point of view, I want to replicate what I do on the album.
I wanted to ask you. Sorry to just sidestep your point there, but I wanted to ask you. I saw your cowboy boots at the TIV the other night, which is definitely in competition with our guy Did Coles and his cowboy boots. You may have won. Sorry, Did. Sorry, not sorry. And do you have the same problem that Did has? That if you've got on the super pointy cowboy boots, you struggle with some of them.
I'm not too bad. I mean, I've kind of acknowledged my issues and tried to deal with them. I've got a switcher across the front, so I tap something and then it clicks on a pedal that's under my board miles away. I've got a few pedals that aren't in the switcher, and I have to kind of get my boot sort of sideways on and do this sort of motion, which halfway through, like you say, halfway through a solo or something where I need to get a particular sound can be a bit stressful. I've got this thing at the minute as well where middle-aged women are obsessed with grabbing the boots. So we played a gig in we played Sabfest the same. Later on Saturday, yes. And I had this woman jumping up, going over the bar trying to grab me boots, and I'm thinking, I wouldn't mind if she'd have pressed the pedal. It'd help me out,
While you're there.
Yeah, while you're there, you might just turn that fuzz pedal on for us and then turn it off in about 10 seconds. That'd be great.
I'm glad I'm not suffering from that.
I appreciate the positive feedback on the boots. I think they're getting more of a reputation than I am, which I'm not sure is a good thing or not.
Being outshined.
Same problem as Did. Same, like people take pictures of the boots, forget there's a guitarist above them. I mean, it's just
it's a genuine issue.
But people trying to touch them while you're playing. I had a friend a while ago who really, when I would go to like a particular solo sound, really enjoyed when you play in a gig that's got no barrier and it's like a small affair, would like wait for me to nod so he could actually stamp the distortion pedal. Come on, right. Hit it. Like that was a bit of a thing for a while, but at least no one's grabbing my boots. I'm quite fine with that. No. But you were saying, do I want it to sound like? Yeah, I do aim for the album. I mean, there are some great live versions, but I don't know. I go and see a band, and it's just like I want it to hit. I want it to sound like it did on the album. Otherwise, I'm a bit pissed off.
Yeah, man. No, I get that completely.
Now, we like to throw some kind of weird hypothetical questions at artists. So with that in mind, for Empire's next album, you've been told that you have to do another genre. But obviously you can pick it. What would that genre be? Has there ever been something else that you thought, oh, I'd love to give that a go or try something?
It'd be one of three for me. It would either be it could be like a pop album, like the 1975, doing a sort of retro 80s thing.
Yeah.
Could be classical. Just like lockdowns really opened the door to orchestration for me and just making some classical tracks. Otherwise, what was the other one I was thinking of? It's gone. I said pop. I said classical. Trance. It would be like some kind of like trance album. Yeah, there you go.
Fantastic. I think the classical, I mean, that I feel that mixes very well with Empire.
Yeah, you'll hear some of that. That's basically that. That's on its way.
But the trance and the 1975 sort of pop thing, I mean, I love that 80s pop thing. I think that's really coming back with that retro sort of sound. So, yeah. I mean, you never know, solo album.
Yeah.
No, not at the moment. I think, yeah, don't worry. I'm not going to go and do a... there's plenty of people that have gone off and done solo albums, but like, no. I think at the moment, Did and I are enjoying writing together too much.
Cool. That's a positive thing, man. I like that. Yeah. You know, it's just, I think that everyone has that desire within them, and it's cool if you can go to your band member and the two of you are able to feed off each other and have that creative energy. I think that's badass. One of the questions we like to ask people, asking people lately, is kind of particularly coming out of lockdown. I don't know about you, but you know, going back gigging and really feeling that adrenaline of seeing people coming out. You know, like with the Crows gig, you know, the amount of people there and the support has been amazing. I mean, do you have any personal targets or goals that, like, where would you like to see Empire in 10 years' time? What would be your personal things that you'd want to reach in?
So the first time we ever met up with anybody and asked for sort of any consultancy when we set out, and that was one of their first questions to us. Well, what is it you guys actually want to do? And our answer for that was, we want to play the major rock festivals of Europe as a minimum. So that's basically that's goal number one. Haven't really set goal number 2, 3, 4, and 5 or whatever, but we want to be doing download. I mean, you know, you guys, like us in Rivers, you know, you're vying to get on to like the next, well, not 2022 by the sounds of things, so far as like they seem to have sorted out their bill as far as I understand. But like, you guys got on Ramblin' Man, which is main stage here, wasn't it? Well, I know it didn't happen, but you know, let's fingers crossed it happens for next year.
It will happen eventually.
Yeah, I mean, and then, you know, that was like, oh, those guys did that, sweet, and we got confirmed for that to open the prog stage on the Saturday.
Amazing.
and then of course, you know, that was going to be our biggest gig of the year, wasn't it? And that was going to
I feel like we could both
especially our lives. So it's just like anyway, so like to do download, to do Hell's Fest, to do, you know, Sweden Rock, to do tons of rock in Norway, to do, I don't know, Copenhagen or Roskilde in Denmark, Whack and Rock am Ring, those kind of things in Germany. All those sorts of things is the things that we are aiming to do. That's goal one.
Cool. No, I like that. I mean, we had a similar conversation with Richie Evans of new band Misery Smile, and it's very similar, wasn't it, Ryan? Just get on download, you know, is his main target, and then kind of like you say, you look at target 1, 2, 3, 4 after that, you know. And I agree. I think once you're on that level, the amount of exposure you get from playing them sort of festivals is unbelievable, man, isn't it? You know, I think that's what we're all looking for.
But I don't think I could consider myself to be really, I don't know, not doing what I want to do, but to be a rock star until you've got to that kind of level. That's not to diminish going out and playing to gigs like the gig.
No,
again, to mention again the Tivoli gig. with Crows. I mean, those guys are doing it. Those guys played the download event the other week. They open Saturday at download next year. We're playing with Wagons on Saturday, both of us. They're also at download next year. So all of these sorts of things, we're mixing in the right circles, and it's great to do the smaller gigs with or without them. Take Savfest. We talked about that. I don't know how you guys had it. We'd come and gone because we were heading off to Scotland before.
Yeah, of course.
We even got to see you on the Saturday, but that was a great little event, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Really enjoyed that biker bar, and we had a great time there. So the variety's great, but what do we want to do? We want to play on the biggest stages we possibly can to those biggest crowds, because that's what, for me at least, we've always watched. Our guitar heroes, our vocal heroes, or whatever, our band heroes play.
No, I agree completely, man, and I think that's the same desires and the hunger that we've got, and I share in your disappointment for Rambling Man. your
next year,
emotion. Yes, next year. We'll keep covering. We'll play it eventually. Fucking 10 years down the line, we'll be playing it. You said about playing them, the joy of playing them smaller gigs, and I think the key is them smaller gigs get us to them bigger gigs, doesn't it? Yeah. For folks that want to check Empire out, what gigs have you got planned coming up? I know obviously you've got a cheeky tour with some cheeky boys coming up.
Yeah, so the cheeky boy, Mason Hill, also known as the Cheeky Boys. So basically, I suppose the big thing is the tour with Mason Hill and Hollow Star, where we're going to be doing at least a hell of a lot of England. I think we're on 19 dates with those guys. So pretty much the whole of the country. So whether it's Manchester or Birmingham, like Wolverhampton area, KK Steel Mill, or Underworld in London, down in Brighton, or off to the east to west, Cardiff, Bristol, all those places. So September and October we've also got Rocking the Bowl in Sheffield. That's like your neck of the woods in the middle of September. And there's a couple of others, like one acoustic show, which is in Aylesbury, which is a free gig that it's like a town kind of festival party on August the 28th. But and then towards the end of the year, we've got Planet Rockstock, and we've got HRH. I think it's called ABC now rather than AOR. So it's AOR, Blues, and Crows all together on one weekend. So there's quite a lot going on. So we're as busy as you guys are with Blackwater Conspiracy.
Yes, we'll have to. We've not done a tour, and I was saying to Ryan the other day, like I've obviously lockdown, like I've not been really, I've not been getting gig fit. Gigs we've been playing, I thought I'm going to collapse halfway through, man. Never mind a tour. So I'm gonna have to get on the Zumba about a week before and just smash it, and just try and get gig ready. But yeah, I mean, me and Ryan will try and pop down to them Mason Hill and Hollow Star shows, because we chatted to the Hollow Star boys, and obviously we know Mason Hill very well, so we'd love to come out and do a face to face and have a bit of a catch up, man. I bet you boys can't wait.
Yeah, can't wait for that. Just like you, no matter how un-gig fit, obviously can't wait to. We did like I think 4 or 5 dates with Blackwater Conspiracy. They're great guys, so you'll have a super cool time with those dudes. And yeah, I mean, we'll see you soon. I mean, like seems to be like we're on a lot of bills together, which is always cool. So yeah. Yeah,
no, I agree. I was saying to Ryan before we started the interview, it just seems to be a thing at the minute. But enjoy it. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Now we like to finish on a bit of a question that we always throw out there. If you could tour with one band from the past and one band from the present, who would they be?
I think that's pretty simple. I think I'd like to tour with Dire Straits. That's
Cool.
like a band.
I don't think we've had Dire Straits before. Cool.
No, it's a new one.
Yeah.
So like, it's one of those bands that you're most likely never going to see again. As much as Martin Knopfler plays a few of his tracks, if you see him live, or a few of the Dire Straits tracks rather. And a band from the present, a band we keep on name dropping that no one knows in this country. It's a band called Dizzy Miss Lizzy. So that's like Dizzy Miss Lizzy, but all Z's rather than S's. They're a Danish band that I introduced the guys to last year. They released if you want to check out a great kind of slightly concept album, but an album with a whole idea, check out Alter Echo by Dizzy Miss Lizzy. It's rock, prog, atmosphere. It's great stuff.
Awesome. We'll check it out. So So what have we got? So we've got Empire opening.
Mm.
We've got Dizzy Miss Lizzie.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got Dire Straits.
That's great, though. That suits me, man.
It's a strong lineup.
Henrik should have a killer time. You know, we'll definitely check out Dizzy Miss Lizzie. It sounds like a strong recommendation. And, yeah, sounds good, man. But Henrik, thanks ever so much for your time. It's been a pleasure, mate.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Whoever's watching this at any point in the next probably 5 years, me and Henrik are probably gigging together this weekend.
Yeah. Chances are we are this weekend.
We'll see you there. But yeah, for those that haven't checked out Empire, make sure you go follow them on Facebook, YouTube, all the rest of it. Check out their recent acoustic album, The Other Side, and make sure you see them on tour with the Mason Hill and the Hollistar Boys for an absolute new wave of classic rock party extravaganza ting. Do you like that? It was good, wasn't it?
That was good. Thanks, guys. And keep those boots safe, Aaron.
No,
yes.
Don't worry about it. If I see you running off with it, I won't be happy.
Won't be me. You know who it's going to be.
Yeah, we know who's going to be.
What size feet have you got? Don't answer that. No, don't.
About 12. I've got fucking hobbit feet.
You might have them.
What's this?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Has he got big boots? I swear to God, if he nicks my boots, I'll nick his boots. And then where's it end? You know what I mean?
You haven't seen his boots. He like wears one pair of shoes for 5 years and then gets a new pair. So like,
see, I'm a bit more protective against mine. Like I put mine in a box and like I tell them to go to sleep and all that shit, you know. So mine, but at the same time, I also wear a velvet jacket and run around. So mine probably stink worse than did. So it'll be maybe that's the competition we're waiting for.
This is a competition. This yeah.
We'll get you to sniff him, Henry, as well as Ryan.
Oh my God!
Which ones are the worst ones, and who passes out first is the winner.
So I'm just concentrating on keeping it down.
Yeah, the competition everyone's been waiting for. But yeah, thanks ever so much, man. Appreciate you coming on, and
see you guys.
See you soon. Yes, and that was Henrik from the band Empire. Good to see him. Good to have a chin wag. As we said before, and I think that the community vibe of you know, obviously Empire and us guys been in the same management and we've gigged a couple of times, you know, I think that really came across in the interview, you know, and it's nice to be able, I mean, me and Henrik have crossed stages quite a few times. We've never really had a chance to have much of a chinwag. So it's nice to hear his own origins and kind of what he, you know, likes to achieve with the band and where he sees the band going. You know, I think that's a really pivotal thing, Mr. Vasey, is that a lot of these bands, you know, us included, a vibe in where we are now. We've got this great fan base, you know, the community, like the bands are growing and growing, but we've all got different goals and targets. That's what sets us apart from bands. You know, my targets are completely different to Empire's and Henrik's, you know, and I think it's always cool to hear, you know, where an artist sees themselves and I think it always comes across as it did in the interview really well, you know, just want to keep moving forward and keep doing what they're doing.
It's always interesting hearing where like a musician wants to be in 10 years, because every time obviously you're going to get a completely different answer. You know, sometimes you get very kind of down to earth kind of answers like Richie a week or so ago, where he was like, I want to play download, I just want to go to download.
Well, I like that because it's a very clear target.
It's a very clear target, it's very specific. But then like you've got you know, other acts like Ronnie and Shane from those Damn Crows, and they're like, we want to do stadiums.
Yeah.
Like really big ambitions. And it's just interesting to see where their mindsets are and where they want to go. And you know, they're all completely valid reasons, like, you know, what they want to do and stuff, but it's just totally like varied and different, you know.
Where do you want Beyond the Vibe? Where do you want Beyond the Vibe?
Where would I want Beyond the Vibe to be? Wow.
Yeah.
I haven't really thought about it.
The interviewee. It's become the interviewer.
I know. All of a sudden. For me, it would be cool to kind of have like just essentially a larger scale thing of what we're doing now. So like kind of like a studio space where people can physically come in person, have a chat, do all that kind of stuff, possibly on YouTube. I'd be happy with that, you know, if we have regular viewers, but just on a bigger scale. I mean, I've always liked the idea of a radio thing as well. Maybe that as an add-on, something like that at some point. That'd be cool. But
Yeah.
I'm kind of one of those that's like, let's see what comes around, because you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you should never think less of what could happen or more of what could happen. It's important to just continue putting all your effort and energy and positivity into it, and hopefully then it will blossom into a
exactly. You know, it's I think if you put 100% in and you put the good vibes in, pardon the pun, you hopefully get to where you want to be. So
feels like the end of a film. Like we're going to go, and that is how you get beyond the vibe.
Yeah.
Drive off into the sunset, and nobody ever sees us again.
Yes,
but of course they will see us again. And how can they support us if they do?
Oh my word, that was a real strong segue there. If you like what we're doing and you can cope with all of the segues you can subscribe and follow us, because obviously we release a podcast every Saturday from 10 a.m. And if you want to find out what guest we have, you can follow us on Facebook, and we reveal who that guest is in the form of a teaser trailer. And on top of that, if that's not good enough still, we also release extra vibes on Thursdays occasionally. They can just turn up in your feed with any possible topic. Could be anything.
Could be anything. But the best way to find out what that is if you click the little bell below the video, and then you get a little cheeky alert. It's a very cheeky alert that lets you know when new videos come from Beyond the Vibe. We appreciate your support. It allows us and the bands to give everybody a platform to celebrate, not just the community of the new wave of classic rock, but rock and roll in general, as well as a little bit of metal, maybe a little bit of folk. We're pretty open-minded.
Could be anything.
Could be anything. Could be anything. But thank you for joining the Vibe, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, we will see you next week.